Introduction to The Italian. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elizabeth Klett. The Italian by Anne Radcliffe. Introduction. About the year 1764, some English travellers in Italy, during one of their excursions in the environs of Naples, happened to stop before the portico of the Santa Maria del Pianto, a church belonging to a very ancient convent of the Order of the Black Penitents. The magnificence of this portico, though impaired by time, excited so much admiration that the travellers were curious to survey the structure to which it belonged, and with this intention they ascended the marble steps that led to it. Within the shade of the portico, a person with folded arms and eyes directed toward the ground was pacing behind the pillars the whole extent of the pavement, and was apparently so engaged by his own thoughts as not to observe that strangers were approaching. He turned, however, suddenly, as if startled by the sound of steps, and then, without further pausing, glided to a door that opened into the church, and disappeared. There was something too extraordinary in the figure of this man, and too singular in his conduct, to pass unnoticed by the visitors. He was of a tall, thin figure, bending forward from the shoulders, of a sallow complexion and harsh features, and had an eye which, as it looked up from the cloak that muffled the lower part of his countenance, seemed expressive of uncommon ferocity. The travellers, on entering the church, looked round for the stranger, who had passed thither before them, but he was nowhere to be seen, and through all the shade of the long aisles only one other person appeared. This was a friar of the adjoining convent, who sometimes pointed out to strangers the objects of the church, which were most worthy of admiration, and who now, with this design, approached the party that had just entered. The interior of this edifice had nothing of the showy ornament and general splendor which distinguish the churches of Italy, and particularly those of Naples, but it exhibited a simplicity and grandeur of design considerably more interesting to persons of taste, and a solemnity of light and shade much more suitable to promote the sublime elevation of devotion. When the party had viewed the different shrines, and whatever had been judged worthy of observation, and were returning through an obscure aisle towards the portico, they perceived the person who had appeared upon the steps, passing towards a confessional on the left, and as he entered it, one of the party pointed him out to the friar, and inquired who he was. The friar, turning to look after him, did not immediately reply, but on the question being repeated, he inclined his head, as in a kind of obeisance, and calmly replied, "He is an assassin." "An assassin!" exclaimed one of the Englishmen. "An assassin! And at liberty?" An Italian gentleman, who was of the party, smiled at the astonishment of his friend. "He has sought sanctuary here," replied the friar. "Within these walls he may not be hurt." "Do your altars, then, protect the murderer?" said the Englishman. "He could find shelter nowhere else," answered the friar meekly. "This is astonishing," said the Englishman. "Of what avail are your laws, if the most atrocious criminal may thus find shelter from them? But how does he contrive to exist here? He is at least in danger of being starved." "Pardon me," replied the friar. "There are always people willing to assist those who cannot assist themselves, and as the criminal may not leave the church in search of food, they bring it to him here." "Is this possible?" said the Englishman, turning to his Italian friend. "Why, the poor wretch must not starve," replied the friend, "which he inevitably would do if food were not brought to him. But have you never, since your arrival in Italy, happened to see a person in the situation of this man? It is by no means an uncommon one." "Never," answered the Englishman, "and I can scarcely credit what I see now." "Why, my friend," observed the Italian, "if we were to show no mercy to such unfortunate persons, Assassinations are so frequent that our
Sample complete. Ready to continue?